The Black Ops 6 campaign has had a ton of leaks so far, and the game has not even been officially announced quite yet. But we have a bunch of information that has been leaked and confirmed by multiple sources, so let's talk about everything that we know about the Black Ops 6 campaign. First off, let's talk about the characters we know are going to be in the game. Adler is returning to Black Ops 6's campaign. However, he is going to be in a more supervisory role like Hudson was following Hudson's death in December 20th of 1989. And with the death of Hudson, Adler takes over that position as the next in charge of what's going on in the CIA Special Operations world. However, we also know that Woods will be in the game. Woods will be in the game, however, this is following December 20th, 1989 when he got kneecapped, so he's not going to be an actual operator we're going to see in conflict. He's going to be a headquarters-based operator only, and we're going to see him in cutscenes at your safe house. And we know that Alex Mason will not be in the game. Depending on your choices in Black Ops 2, Alex Mason either died or went missing in action for about 25 years, so we don't actually know what happened to him. He won't be a part of the game at all. But speaking about the characters that you're actually playing as in the game, we have two main characters you will play as in the game. You're going to play as one main character from about 1990 to about 1995, and then we're going to switch over to a secondary character in about 1997, 1998, and all the way up until about 2003, 2004. So the first character you're playing as is named Ratcliffe. We know that Ratcliffe will be the first character you're playing as in the game because he's the one we found so far in the game files referencing the first Gulf War. And we actually know a little bit about this character, Ratcliffe, in the first place. The Ratcliffe character is going to be played by Luke Charles Stafford, who's played in a bunch of different kind of roles and TV shows. You might recognize him. But about a month and a half ago, he came out on Instagram saying how excited and happy he was to be one of the main characters in the upcoming Black Ops game. Now, we know that the Black Ops game is going to be releasing this year based on Xbox's reveal, and we've had a bunch of references to Ratcliffe in the game files that we got leaked so far that were actually hidden inside the Modern Warfare 3 game files. But moving on, the second main character you play as, we don't actually know the name of quite yet. But we do know that you won't play as this character until about 1997, 1998. And this character is going to be played by Michael Silverblatt. So one thing that I could say is that based on his appearance, and when I show you the side-by-side photo right here, Michael Silverblatt may in fact be a young David Mason. He may be the main character we're playing as because David Mason joined the military in 1996, was part of the Navy SEALs in 1997, and was part of Special Operations Division of the CIA in 1998 to 1999. So it all lines up perfectly for us to be introduced to a young David Mason in the context of the Black Ops story, and kind of tie in the story of what David Mason was doing when he first got in the military, especially why his connection with Woods is so deep, considering Woods may have been his supervisor for many years in the CIA, as well as his father figure following the death of Alex Mason. And one of the other things that we know about kind of the main characters is that we also know there's going to be a main villain in the game. We don't know the main villain's name yet, but we know the main villain group. The main villain group will be called Cerberus, and we know this because they have been found in the game files as a faction for the multiplayer section and the campaign of Black Ops 6. However, they have not really been found in any of the game files for Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 Zombies, so it'll be kind of interesting to see what the tie-in is. One other thing that we know is the Cerberus logo is kind of plastered around in some specific levels in the game. It's actually a badge icon that many soldiers wear on their uniform as well. So we kind of have them confirmed to be one of the main factions of the game and from what appears to be the main villain faction of the game. But I also have this theory, and I want you to kind of hear me out on this. The main villain of Black Ops Cold War was the Perseus group, a group named after Greek mythology. Cerberus is in part of Greek mythology. He is a faction villain group in the game, so he's not going to be one of the allied countries of America or England. And considering the game does take place with missions in Russia, it appears that it may be a Russian faction. On top of that, when I overlay the symbols here, you can see the Perseus logo almost acts as a setup for the Cerberus logo. And then you even take it one step further, and the Coney logo from Call of Duty Modern Warfare series actually lines up very well as a kind of transformation period from Perseus to Cerberus to Coney. I think Call of Duty is doing this because it adds a great way of an overarching story between the Black Ops and Modern Warfare games, especially as there's going to be some crossover points here in the next years as Black Ops 2 and Modern Warfare 4 will take place within the same kind of rough time period of years. So, tell me in the comments down below, do you agree that this is a good theory? Do you think it's wrong? Whatever your case may be, tell me below. Anyways, the game will also take place in quite a few countries, and we know a couple of these countries for sure. So let's talk about them. We know that there will be a battle in Mogadishu in Somalia. This is an obvious reference to Black Hawk Down, which took place in 1993. We also know about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't appear there's any conflict taking place, but it appears to be the location of your kind of safe house area where you regroup between missions like you did in Black Ops Cold War. In real history, Saudi Arabia was the staging ground for American and Allied troops to enter the Gulf War, and it was a very good staging point for a lot of different things in the region, considering its proximity to Central Eastern Europe and to the Middle East. It's definitely set up as a point where you're going to have your safe house and where you're going to kind of launch all your missions out of. However, we also know that the game will take place in Iraq and Kuwait. From what we can tell about the Iraq and Kuwait kind of fighting that we're going to have in the game, it's going to take place primarily in the city of Kuwait and along the border of Iraq, and it's going to take place during the first Gulf War when America was trying to push Iraq back out of Kuwait following their invasion of Kuwait for their oil and resources. We also know that we're going to have some battles in Russia, but it appears from the game files that one of the things that we know about this for sure is there was an AK-97 attached to a lot of these missions in Russia. The AK-97 didn't come out until 1997, so it won't be until later in the campaign that we actually go to Russia and fight. However, we also have references to Yugoslavia. Now, it's interesting that they call it Yugoslavia because today it's actually a multitude of countries of Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, a bunch of different things. Between 1990 and 1999, there was a bunch of fighting about Serbians and Croatians and Bosnians all trying to declare their own independence, take their own regions. People didn't want to have other people annex them or leave their country. So it was a lot of conflict and fighting, and eventually the UN had to get involved in about 1995 and once again in about 1999. And one other thing to note is that we know that the Black Ops campaigns and the Modern Warfare campaigns take place in the same universe. And one thing we know about the Modern Warfare universe was in 1999, Russia invaded Urzikstan. So we may see a reference to this in Black Ops 6, but there is actually no game files for Urzikstan itself in the Black Ops 6 campaign. So there may be a reference to it, but no actual missions within the game taking place in Urzikstan. And the last thing I kind of want to talk about is the missions in the game. So we know that the game will have a mix of linear and open world campaign missions. From what we can understand so far, you'll have about 2 linear missions that will set up the main story of Black Ops 6. From that point on, you'll have an open world section. After you complete the objectives in that open world section, you'll have the opportunity to go back to your safe house, start a linear story mission, which will then set up the second open world part of the campaign. And then you'll have 2 linear missions to end off the campaign, totaling about 8 missions to 9 missions in total. We don't have a lot of more information about this, but I can tell you some of the conflicts that we know these missions do take place during. And one of the things that we know for sure is that one of the open world campaign mission sections will take place during the first Gulf War in that kind of Kuwait-Iraq region. So the first Gulf War started because Saddam Hussein wanted to take over the oil resources in Kuwait, so he marched the Iraqi army in to claim that. The American military, along with other allied forces, showed up a couple days later to kind of help push Iraq back out of Kuwait. And upon successfully doing so, Iraq became a little bit of a sore loser and set fire to all of the oil fields in Kuwait to help kind of burn the resources off and cripple their economy. So overall, it was a pretty interesting event, but it's a great setting for an open world campaign, as there was many different US operations going on at the same time in the regions with overlapping missions sometimes. It sets up a really great campaign because it was a really chaotic period of time and a really chaotic war considering how short the war was in total. And one of the other things we know is that while you are in Saudi Arabia, this is only for what appears to be a safe house. There's not actually a lot of fighting that took place in Saudi Arabia in the early 1990s and to late 1990s, more than it was just kind of a staging ground for the US military to help control what was going on in the Middle Eastern region following the first Gulf War. We know that one of the major conflicts in the game that you're going to be taking a part of is the Yugoslav Wars. This is a bunch of wars that kind of combined really about 1991 to 1995. There were some kind of longer engagements and longer conflicts that lasted until about 1999, but the US tried to not get involved until really at the last moment, and that's when the US decided to go in with the UN to help kind of stop a lot of these war crimes that were happening. But overall, you're going to see the conflict take place in Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia, a bunch of different regions. And it appears at one point you're actually going to break into a club in Yugoslavia to help rescue hostages. So I'm not sure what's all going on there, but as I get more information, I'll make sure I keep you up to date with it. We also know that one of the major conflicts in the game will be the kind of Battle of Mogadishu, otherwise known as the Black Hawk Down incident. This was American and UN forces went into an area to help kind of dispose of a Somalian warlord. It turned into a big kind of gaggle of humanity and a lot of fighting there. I think this will be a really cool, interesting part of the campaign, but it appears that this will be part of a linear story mission, so just keep that in mind. And the last conflict that we know is going to take place is going to be a made-up conflict sometime after 1997 and 1998 in Russia itself. We know this because the AK-97 has been attached to the game files for Black Ops 6. Again, this rifle did not come out until 1997. And from what we can see from the game file so far, the AK-97 is kind of something that's exclusively in the Russian missions as they take place later in the campaign, likely to tie in with that David Mason tie-in I talked about earlier, but that's the conflicts that we know about in the game so far. Overall, the campaign is set up to be a pretty good campaign considering it's one of Call of Duty's first attempts at an open world campaign. However, it's still going to have those linear story missions, which is a very hard line for Call of Duty to balance. I'm personally very excited for an open world campaign for Call of Duty. It seems like a great prospect to me, especially considering the internal dialogue from Activision and Microsoft. It appears that the game is going to be more Far Cry-esque open world style than an actual kind of open world combat missions we got in Modern Warfare 3. And while I'm excited about the campaign leaks, I'm a lot more excited about the multiplayer leaks. And I have made an entire video on it, so you want to watch that video right here if you want to know everything that we know for certain and 100% confirmed about the Black Ops 6 multiplayer. So until next time, I am IceBurgz, your Call of Duty informant. Stay frosty.